Hello and welcome to today's RSPA Canadian Community Roundtable. I'm Jim Roddy, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the RSPA. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who aren't familiar with the RSPA, it's North America's largest community of VARs, software developers, vendors, and distributors in the retail, restaurant, and grocery verticals. And we're a fit for any organization that's serious about growth in those markets. So VARs, value-added resellers, join us for guidance from our general counsel, our community in the RSPA Academy. ISVs join to develop strategic relationships with our community members who can expand their reach. And vendors and distributors join because they need to be where the growth-oriented VARs and ISVs congregate. And so we've been around for many years, and many companies have been members for decades. And we also frequently add startup tech companies because we accelerate their growth and they see the massive ROI that RSPA membership offers. We've had a strong presence in Canada for many years, and we're thrilled to present to you this Canadian Community Roundtable. If you're not a member and you're serious about growth in the retail IT channel, you can see on the slide right now, membership@gorspa.org. That is the email that you want to send that to. And just, I can talk at an overview in terms of what the organization does, but also want to share a few success stories from some of our Canadian members. You see here, Tim Shane from King Business Services Corp says, the RSPA provides the vehicle, the venues, and the network to achieve growth. You won't feel alone in the sea of small IT businesses. So he takes advantage of the RSPA community, as does Andrea Roberts, the president of Teletech Systems, who says being part of an international organization has aided our business staying in the know of the latest trends and how to adapt. This knowledge has definitely sustained our longevity. We also have Paul Leduc, who takes advantage of the community. He says the RSPA community is a support group at many levels. The support and knowledge are priceless. Paul is the president of a growing reseller, Globe POS Systems in Brampton. We also have Sean Buckley, he leads retail partnerships at Shopify. He says, as a Canadian, the RSPA has been a key channel for us to open up conversations in the U.S. and with stakeholders in the industry. The RSPA has materially impacted our success in the market. So that's just a few of the benefits that you can take advantage of. Again, these were more emphasizing on the community, and we have a long list of benefits that I'm putting up here on the screen right now. And if I can turn it over for a minute to RSPA Member Services Manager, Ashley Nagy, she's going to highlight a handful of these services to make sure that our members and non-members are aware. Ashley.
Thanks, Jim. So as Jim mentioned, RSPA is a place for those growth-minded or growth-focused members, business owners, and vendor companies alike. So I thought I'd highlight some of the benefits that many of those successful members take advantage of all the time and throughout the year, really. One being education. So we have a tremendous amount of education on our website, in the member portal. Whether it be on-demand trainings or live webinars like we're doing today. We also do a number of podcasts and emails and a lot of really helpful information that our members leverage in their business all the time. And much of that education is produced and delivered by members just like yourself. Another is our advisory services. So when you're really in that growth mindset and looking at your business specifically, we have staff available that can help with things like sizing up the market, looking at your customer surveys in a number of different opportunities that is specific and key to your business, and that's all a part of membership. In addition, we have our legal and security advisor, so whether it's that pressing legal question that you have on a customer contract or maybe there's a security requirement that's present that you need to make sure that you're on top of, those are services that we provide and help our members with daily. In addition, the connections, that's a huge part of the value that our members get out of being a part of the RSPA. So whether it's the membership directory where you can go out and look at each of our member companies individually and reach out to them directly, or if you'd like to have a warm introduction working with myself and the rest of the team, we make several warm introductions on a daily basis throughout the year to help our members connect and form better partnerships to really enhance their business model.
Great. Thank
you,
Ashley.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And one new benefit that we just added earlier this year, exclusive for Canadian members, is preferred pricing for RSPA Canadian members on Rogers Business Solutions plans. Again, that applies to data plans, voice plans, 4G data, SIM cards. And so if you're interested in that, you can see the contact information on the screen for Dan Sherman. Shoot him an email, give him a call, or reach out to, again, membership@gorspa.org, and we're happy to help you out. Again, members should reach out to Dan directly. Non-members can talk with Ashley in the Member Services Department. And speaking of Ashley, there's one more new benefit that we want to mention about the RSPA Solutions Center. And Ashley, if you can give us an overview before we get to our roundtable.
Thanks, Jim. So this is a really great resource that we worked with our community to put together. In the RSPA Solutions Center, we have collected all of our vendors have submitted their vendor hub pages or portals so that you can go out and network or see what are the latest solutions that the vendors are offering that you might want to take advantage of in your business, or maybe you are a vendor and you're looking for another vendor partnership or connection. This is a great resource tool. Take a minute and, after the call, go out and take a look at the Solutions Center. Again, we're here to help with any of those additional warm introductions as well. And this is free and a part of membership for our vendor members.
Great, thank you, Ashley. And we want to call out some of our vendor members today. These are our Canadian community sponsors, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to bring you this great education and some of the other activities that we have going on in the Canadian community. So again, special thank yous to Blue Star, Payment Tree, Star Micronics, Global Payments, Touch Dynamic, ScanSource, and Partner Tech. Again, thank you very much to our Canadian community sponsors for making all of this possible. And before we kick off the roundtable, if we could just have a last word on the RSPA and on our community from RSPA President and CEO, John Kirk. John, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. And gang, I think we could all agree that the business has gotten a bit more complicated, a bit more complex over time, and especially in the last 4 months or so. And you just got a broad brush sampling that really the RSPA, and I think this is really important to focus on, the RSPA can be, and we're working to be, your go-to resource for almost anything in retail. We want to give you an opportunity to expand your inner circle, meaning folks you can rely on, just like the panel will be representative of today, folks you can rely on to get great information. Whether you're looking to expand your distribution as a vendor, or you're looking to expand your portfolio as a VAR, we're going to give you access to the best and brightest in the retail space. And that's, when you think about that, that's really a big idea, but it's the essence of what we do. And it's an exciting job that we have, and a mission that we have to serve you guys. If you're looking to expand your learning through continuous learning, and I know that most of us are always focused on getting better, and there's certain areas of our business that needs attention, needs special attention. Well, the RSPA is going to give you the opportunity to just keep walking into that batter's box of learning. There's not 3 outs in the inning. You just keep walking up to that batter's box, and you're learning, and the opportunities keep coming to you. And today, this is a great batter's box to be in, because you're going to have an opportunity to get some perspective from folks that may be solving the problem you're looking to solve. Maybe we'll even give you some input that will help you prevent a problem that you otherwise might not have prevented, or uncover an opportunity that is sitting there that you may not have thought of. So this is a great ballpark and a great batter's box to be in today. So we're looking forward to it. We want to thank you for participating, and we want to also thank the panel, and we're really looking forward to it. So appreciate it. And Jim, looking forward to the activities today. Thanks again.
Great, thank you very much, John. And today's roundtable will be an open forum information sharing discussion. And just a note, please note that the views and opinions expressed during this roundtable are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Retail Solution Providers Association. That's where our general counsel, our legal counsel comes in. Also, we've asked everyone on today's call to avoid sales pitches and to identify themselves when they speak for the benefit of all our listeners. So again, this is an open-ended discussion, but we want to kick it off with our 5 featured guests. And let's turn it over first to Ron Fleming, the Director of Sales at Central Canada for Global Payments. And the topics we're going to discuss today, and Ron, if you could pick from any one of these, again, the overarching topic are key areas VARs and ISVs must address as Canada opens from COVID-19. And the questions we're hoping to answer today, and again, we'll follow the lead of our featured guests and of our audience today. What business issues do solution providers need to address as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis? What services should VARs be offering to their merchants? What's been well received and what's on the horizon? And then how are you adjusting your sales approach? So Ron, from Global Payments, if you can kick us off, please.
Thanks very much, Jim. I'm hoping everybody can hear me well. I'm excited about the opportunity to address the Canadian RSPA community today. Hopefully I can deliver some value to the discussion. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, so I'm the VP of Integrated Solutions for Global Payments. So essentially what we do, or my group does, is we manage relationships with VARs and ISVs with Global Payments. So being in the payment space, that gives me a unique perspective on seeing sales and consumer spend and really what's happening in the economy in Canada across all verticals, especially retail and restaurant. So what I was hoping I could do today was just provide a bit of context to what we're seeing at a macro level with payments, and to provide some insight into measures required for reopening and what you guys are going to need to do, or what you're going to need to consider when we're reopening in the various markets, and what your retailers are looking for, what your customers are looking for. So, you know, if you'll allow me, I'll just give you a little bit of perspective on what we're seeing, and then I'll kind of relate that to the business issues and the services that we should be offering merchants going forward. So obviously, you know, COVID-19 had a significant impact on the Canadian economy. Really, up until that point, we were seeing very steady growth in purchase volume in the Canadian economy, right up until those emergency measures were put in place. And from there, as you all can imagine, purchase volume and sales fell off a cliff. Interestingly enough, while sales have gone down overall, we're seeing a shift in consumers to using debit cards. And maybe that ties into psychology related to being in a crisis situation. Maybe it's related to not wanting to rack up your credit cards. But it's an interesting phenomenon that we're noticing, is that consumers are shifting from credit to debit. As you can imagine, cross-border sales initially fell significantly. However, it's rebounding and growing quite significantly, and a lot of that is due to e-commerce. Well, pretty much all of it is due to e-commerce, because face-to-face cross-border sales are virtually nothing. Some segments have grown as a result of all this. So depending on the segment or the verticals that you guys are working in, we're seeing some opportunities. Clearly, food and drug has grown significantly. People are spending more on this than other categories. I don't know if anyone's in fuel or travel, but you know, we've seen very, very large decreases in spend in those segments. 60 to 90% drop in volume overall since COVID. Also, as I'm sure all of you can relate to individually, we're seeing basket sizes increase, especially in food and drug. Right out of the gate with the start of COVID-19, there was, I guess, a mentality of people wanting to stock up. So we saw a 50% increase in transactions in the food and drug space. That's starting to go back to normalize, but we did see an increase there. As a result of that, what we saw in the industry was a change to the rules around contactless payments and contactless limits, where we used to have a $100 limit for contactless payments in Canada. As a response to COVID, that was changed to $250 very quickly. So it's important when you're out speaking to your customers that they're aware of that, and that they're enabling their systems to accept those contactless payments at a higher limit. And certainly, as you can imagine, big shift to e-commerce for everything, retail, restaurant, we're seeing a very large shift to the e-commerce space. Also, wireless devices for delivery and curbside pickup. We've had a run on those products. If your systems are integrating into various processors, only for let's say a card present scenario, you definitely want to take a look at talking to your service provider to add a contactless, wireless solution for curbside and delivery.
Got it. Great. Oh.
Yep. Is that good? Am I running up against
that was good. Yeah, and we again, once we get the 5 featured guests get to weigh in, we'll open it up to the entire group, and the 5 featured guests can dive back in as well. So Ron, thank you very much for that. We'll go next to Paula Duke, who you met earlier when we reviewed our success stories. Paul is the president of Globe POS in Brampton. Paul, what key areas, you're a reseller, what key areas must be addressed? What do you want to talk about from a business issues, services, or sales approach?
Well, I think we know some of the obvious, and it's interesting that Ron was mentioning, the credit to debit shift. I guess we've started to see it a lot. We're mostly concentrated in retail and grocery. So, the services as basic as demands on shields for protecting the cashiers, e-commerce, we've seen a lot to start to shift, even though people were in the process over the next few years to get it done. It got really pushed, and it created a certain challenge. Those companies that we integrate with, or those companies that offer service, are slow to deliver right now. They're overloaded. They can't get can't get to the demand. So a lot of people were trying to be creative for curbside pickup, phone and orders. So we tried to find quick solutions. It created a serious challenge on the other side in terms of delivery. So we've seen those shift. Even though in grocery, we still see a pretty 17% increase in most of our customers on average, because people's basket is still staying high. Obviously, if you're in Toronto, you can't go to a restaurant. And people have learned or relearned to cook at home. So that market is still, but more and more those merchants are nervous about security. We've seen a lot, and I don't know, and I'll throw that to everybody on the call. We've seen a lot about these temperature devices. We didn't get much demand of that, but that's probably the only thing we never got, requests from our merchants. I mean, because again, we talked about shields, we talked about e-commerce, we talked about a wireless device for curbside. That was probably one of the first things that everybody was calling us about. It was like, how do I get one of those right away? So we had to adjust, the way we were working with some of our processors. We had to adjust some of the ways of how we interfaced or interacted to those devices. And when it came to sales approach, well, it's mostly all virtual now. I was far from being an expert on any viewing devices. I'm the old-fashioned guy that likes to go face-to-face. That just does not work right now. So that entire approach of sale and virtual sale works for the younger generation, but we have an older owner. That's always been a challenge. It still is today, to actually do a proper sales presentation for them to see. They still can't touch the terminal, and so that sales approach, even though the leads have not been coming in as they usually would, that sales approach has been really, really hard for us in adapting to a certain type of clientele. And we see an older generation in the grocery world, or more established businesses, which been a serious challenge.
Great, thank you, Paul. And just one more follow-up before I introduce our next guest, just a yes or no answer. Have you learned to cook at home yet during the pandemic?
I enjoy cooking. I always did, so I'm cooking again.
Good, wonderful, good to hear. Thank you for that. All right, thank you, Paul. Now we turn it over to Jean-Luc Major, the Channel Partner Specialist at Star Micronics. He's based in Toronto. Jean-Luc, what is your perspective on key areas that solution providers need to address as Canada reopens from the COVID crisis?
Well, from our standpoint, I mean, we were fortunately before the COVID lockdown started, we had been working with online ordering providers, all the majors across North America, and several in Europe as well. So we had already forged those partnerships with companies that provide meals, delivery, curbside, and so on. So when the lockdown started to occur, of course, they started first in Canada because of the concerted effort of the governments to really take notice of the pandemic and act together to take care of it. We saw we saw a drop in hospitality business for in-store restaurants that are serving meals. Obviously, that business really paused, but then shortly thereafter, we saw a huge uptick in the number of printers that we make that support these online ordering platforms. And so, as a matter of fact, we've been full bore shipping product to meet the needs of the online ordering companies that are out there, because a lot of restaurants had to pivot immedately to be able to serve food and put it out there and have it delivered. So I think that a VAR or an ISV that has a partnership with online ordering is in a good position. Obviously, I'm just speaking from the experience that we've gone through over the last few weeks, a couple of months. So, like I said, we saw a pause at first, but then May and then June we're going gangbusters. And it's because of these online ordering services that are available. Services wise, I mean, it's not something that we do very much. I mean, we don't offer services for the most part. We offer technology that fits an ISV's needs. And when they develop a market and they want an easy to use printing or cash management solution, then that's where we step up. Moving forward, I think what's going to happen is, I don't think it's going to change. I think that a lot of restaurants are going to be opening up soon. Their capacity is going to be much reduced. So in the best of times, restaurants operate on very thin margins. And I'm concerned that some restaurants are just not going to make it. And the restaurants that were able to shift their model, we've even seen restaurants that are selling groceries, but it's for curbside pickup, and they're using their printing hardware to be able to fulfill that need. So I think in the short term, we're going to probably see a lot of continued curbside pickup, and in the long term, I think what we're going to see is a hybrid of both. I think a VAR has to be able to offer those solutions and partner with companies that are offering those solutions. If they haven't already done so, they need to do so as soon as possible, because I don't think that's going to change. I don't think we're going to return back to normal like we hoped. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to be in a very different way of doing business for the next little while. But like I said, I mean, fortunately, we were in the right place at the right time to be able to meet the needs of the market.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Jean-Luc. And I guess, with our engagements with the RSPA community, echoing your sentiment about online ordering, a lot of folks built up the habit over the past few months, and they're not going to go backwards. Could it slip back a little bit? Yes, but it's not going to go back to the pre-COVID levels, because people now know how to use those apps, or they're used to going to the websites, and they don't want to get out of their sweatpants, right? Like, there's no reason that if they don't want to go to the restaurant, they know that they don't have to now. And the resellers who did their work early and had early partnerships with online ordering organizations were ahead of the game. And so, kind of a lesson going forward for everybody: make sure you're starting to partner with folks who are doing some of those around the corner, or what seems like around the corner technologies so you're ready in case they're needed at a moment's notice. So Jean-Luc, thank you. Let's turn to our next featured guest, Tim Shane. He is a value-added reseller. He's the president of King Corp in Richmond, BC. Tim, always a pleasure to talk with you. Welcome. Tim, are you there?
There, how's that? I was muted.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you very much for putting this all together, Jim and Paul. You know, it's an honor to be part of this whole community. So, and I appreciated Ron's macro view on things because that really puts into context what we all know deep down. But you know, now it's quantitative as far as the information Ron was sharing. So that's great. I would say that I would mirror much of what Paul alluded to, and certainly what Jean-Luc has referenced as well. We are mostly in the retail and grocery, so we do liquor stores, farm markets, and grocery stores. And I think from the business issues, outside of everything about online and e-commerce and click and collect or curbside delivery, I think the issues that a lot of our merchants are looking at is financial and operational. Financials, they're looking for a budgetary, a budget conscious solution. And the reason I say that, and I think Paul referred to it, is that when you take a look at the exponential growth that technology's catapulted everything in, whether it's e-commerce or Zoom meetings or just connection virtually, nobody had a playbook for this. Nobody knew this was coming. So they don't necessarily have a budget in line. They don't say, hey, you know what? I got 10 grand, 20 grand, 5 grand to spend on this. So it's really important for us as a community, as a solutions provider or trusted advisor, to sort of navigate that kind of path that we have to take. And I think, I did not see the plexiglass thing coming. I got to be honest, did not see it coming. But since then, we put these beautiful, aesthetically pleasing shields and sneeze guards up, and make it almost seamless to be able to deal with the customers and the merchants. Safety and health is all really critical when it comes to the staffing. And the one thing that I'm seeing from a business issue is staffing at liquor stores and at grocery stores. Not only are they kind of competing with the Canadian government and their CERB, because some folks didn't always get the amount of hours that they wanted, but staffing's become a real bit of a concern for a lot of our folks. So anyways, for all those who know me, I have a tendency of rambling and talking too much. I'll tell you one story that we had a Zoom conference on Monday, and some guy suggested I put the what do you call it when you the closed captioning on it. So then it sees it'll show you what you've talked about. And so there's like 40 bloody pages of me talking. I'm going, geez, I didn't realize how much I talked. He said, yeah, you just have to talk less. You should keep those closed captioning books so you know to shut up. Anyways, yeah, Paul will love that one. That's just a brief thing on what we're seeing, and I'm sure throughout the next 30 minutes or so we can banter back and forth. But I'll let Peter talk now.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Tim. And as Tim alluded to, our fifth and last but not least featured guest is Peter Allen, Business Development Manager for distributor ScanSource in Mississauga. Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you everybody for inviting me and putting this together as well. So I just want to, a lot of good points on there, and some of the things I wanted to kind of talk about were, as the stores kind of reopen, they're going to have to compete against these e-commerce, and how do they go about competing against that? So one of the big things, and I actually read earlier, was a blog we had come out. It was from Acosta's research that showed that 28% of people that did online grocery that actually didn't buy, now that 28% is actually buying online. So how do you get those people back in the stores and make them feel safe? So that's one of the big things as stores reopen. You got to make people feel safe when they're shopping, right? So there's things that have come out, such as UV lights for pin pads, kiosks. Because one thing people don't want to do, is line up in a big lineup behind everybody. They want to get out as fast as they can. And then how much is it going to cost a retailer to have somebody standing there wiping down a pin pad every time somebody checks out? So just feeling your customer, having your customers feel safe, your employees feel safe as well while they're working. Those are some big things happening there. Also with, I think somebody said something earlier about mobile devices. Typically they were always used for inside the four walls. Now retailers and merchants are shifting more to the in-store checkouts. That way the customers, again, don't have to line up in a big queue. They can get them in out of the store quick. They feel comfortable, just less contact with anybody else there. And I also wanted to echo something that one of my fellow coworkers here said. He goes, instead of looking at this as COVID problems, we need to take this as COVID solutions and be able to provide our customers, partners with information on emerging technologies, right? And what's coming out and best offerings for customers. And the best way for us to do that right now, obviously, is through webinars, virtual seminars, and things like that. That's the nature of the beast right now, and that's kind of the way we have to do it. And we've invested in different technologies as well, and offering support to our customers, webinars, things on our upcoming solutions and what best fits customer needs and what's going to help them as they reopen.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate our 5 featured guests sharing their perspectives. Now we'll open it up to everybody here on the roundtable. We have about 40 channel executives who are joining us today. So we have a lot of folks here, and this is, again, the opportunity for you to weigh in with your perspective, your question, any story that you might have. Could even involve a closed captioning story on a Zoom conference call, but just use the question function and just let us know that you want to talk, and then Kathy Meter will make sure that you are unmuted, and then you'll be able to participate in the discussion today. So again, just use that question function, and we'd be happy to open up to everybody here participating in today's roundtable. And I guess while we're waiting for some questions to come in, it gets back to Paul, and happy to have anybody else weigh in. You touched on a little bit about adjusting your sales approach. You said how, you have some of these folks who maybe aren't used to virtual sales. What things are you doing in order to keep the needle moving? And what do you plan to do post-COVID in terms of from a sales approach? What things are you going to do differently that you think some folks in our audience might draw from?
Well, at this point, I'm not sure I'm smart enough to have the answer to that. Now, we did adjust, and some of our customers have been very receptive to that portion of remote conversations and presentations. We're not in their stores. It's normally a shorter presentation. So it helps us sometimes focus more on the subject at hand. So that makes it a little more, again, focused conversations and focused presentations. Other than the technology side, all in all, those webinars, those presentations that we do virtually are sometimes a little more effective. But I don't know. Again, I guess I'm part of the older generation that likes to, and a lot of our customers likes to see the terminal or see the solution, and so that portion is still. I don't know. We're probably going to do less store visits, but we're still going to do store visits. On the sales side, we've also, upped our digital marketing, something that we were not really good at. We actually decided to hire a company to do that because we didn't have the resources in-house to do a good job to try to, use that sales approach more effectively than a few picture sites once in a while. So we're really hopping or changing, reorienting our marketing to address that younger generation that can do an online demo. And we've done an average of 1 or 2 a week and been pretty successful at it. It's just adjusting. Is it going to be the new normal? Maybe. I'm not smart enough to answer that.
If I can say something, Paul. Sorry, this is Tim again. We've been doing the sort of Uber conference presentations for customers for the last, I want to say, 8 months or so, and they're well received. And I agree with you that they would be more focused, and they typically will take about 20 to 35 minutes, unless they ask a bunch of questions. But it's become quite acceptable out here anyway to do these presentations remotely. And then once they get down to decision making, then they request an in-person, which is not bad. But I mean, with pictures and diagrams and stuff like that, they've been really quite receptive. But I would also piggyback on what you're talking about from a digital marketing standpoint. You and I talked about texted back and forth anyway, and that's what's great about the community. You can count on like minds. Peter and I talked a little while ago as well, but we've refreshed our social media thing. So we've hired a student who is quite adept at social media, whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. With all this online digital virtual growth out there, everybody using the bandwidth, I think Paul and I discussed it. It's a good opportunity for us to refresh the LinkedIn posts and try to guide those customers or potential customers of what we can provide. And it's interesting. A lot of people out there just don't get what our function or our value is, and it's our job to just get out there and tell the story. And I think that's what it's all about.
Thank you, Tim. And before, so Ali from Moneris has a question, but before we go to him, Paul, just a quick follow-up with you. Tim said he uses Uber Conference, and those demos or presentations are like 20 to 35 minutes. Do you mind sharing, Paul, what technology you use, and then how long those presentations are? You said now they're shorter and focused.
Well, again, on a shorter focus, Tim is probably right in terms of time. We use Teams. Because it's part of our Office 365, blah, blah, blah. But, and to be honest, I didn't even know until probably March that we had that and how it actually worked. So we use Teams, and probably an average of 30 minutes. It's probably, after 30 minutes, I feel sometimes the customer disengaging slowly. You don't have the, how do I say that? You don't have that captive audience like we do when you're face to face, I feel. So I try to leave them to 20 to 30 minutes. Some customers will be a bit longer, but after 45, they're disconnected. So I've actually started to do, 20, 30 minutes, answer their questions, and doing another one maybe a few days, a week later to keep that captive attention.
Got it. Thank you, Paul. For those who are listening who are saying, I don't believe that, I think I can go an hour with a virtual presentation. I'm sure some of you right now are also doing email while you're listening to this in the roundtable, or you got interrupted at some point in the last half hour. And that's a real thing when you're doing more of an inside sales virtual presentation. There's a million other distractions where if you're face to face, you can tell if that person isn't paying attention. So different world, different sales tactics. So let's turn it over to Ali from Moneris. Ali, if you could just introduce yourself, tell folks what what your role is at Moneris, and then you wanted to share your perspective, please.
For sure. Thanks, Jim, and thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to hear that everybody's well and safe, and thanks for putting this together. John, Ashley, Jim, thank you, and hello also to everybody on this community. Jean-Luc, Paul, Tim, Peter, everybody else. Sorry if I miss anybody. But yeah, I just want to, I mean, I agree with everybody. This is the same thing we've seen. And also to start with introducing myself, some of you already know me, but maybe not all of you. My name is Ali El Sahili, and I work with Mineris on the partnership team, partner relationship manager, and we deal with a lot of partners, ISV partners, resellers, partners in all verticals. With merchants as well on all sizes. So I totally agree with everybody who provided their feedback and what they've done, what they've seen in terms of industry shift, in terms of what they've took in terms of measures. The same thing here. The positive thing that we're seeing, everybody's adapting from partners, from merchants, from consumers. In a safe way. They're following the guidelines, the rules, and you know, having everything prepared, everything ready for those customers, merchants, and partners and consumers is really helping everybody kind of continue in the business. The online ordering, we've seen huge shift. A lot of partners, some partners who did not have online ordering models, for example, we've seen. A lot of them came and enabled that feature to offer online ordering to merchants, especially in the restaurant sector. But I also want to add to what Paul mentioned. You asked him how everybody kind of adapting to the current situation and accepting in terms of the sales phase, if you will, being done remotely. And I think, you know, to everyone is a little bit different, depends on the resources that they have. For us at Mineris, and I think Ron at a global, you may agree, it may be the same for you. The sales organization is a large team for a different level, and they have done remote in the past. We've done remote, we've done phone sales. We've seen some merchants adapted quickly. They like the idea. It saves everybody time, whether it's on the employee side, the travel to the meeting, the arranging for the meeting, or on the business side as well, because they are in a state where they have adapted to the new normal, if you will, and they're okay with doing the phone conversation. They find it's quicker, it's more efficient. Some merchants may be kind of still like the traditional way, come meet face to face. But on those, let's say, recurring quarterly or monthly or biannual meetings, we're seeing a lot of positive feedback on continuing with the same thing. Some merchants specifically, you know, finding it's more efficient for them as well, because they are living the same situation we're in it. So it's not really affecting us. I know for some of our partners, you know, especially on this event now, maybe different experience as well, just from resources standpoint. Maybe this was the norm before, because you don't have many headcounts on the sales organization or on the relationship organization, if you will, and you used to rely more on virtual or on phone calls, and this may have not changed much. But for us, I know some areas, some teams were impacted a little bit in terms of changing how we do things. But everybody's adapted to the new normal, and we're finding it's becoming kind of, you know, it's good, it's positive, and I think it's more efficient for everybody, for us and for our partners and merchants.
Got it. Ali, thank you for that. And yeah, it certainly is more efficient than needing to drive all over. And if you're able to have shorter meetings and get done what the merchant wants, that certainly can be more effective. So Ali, thank you for weighing in. Again, If anybody else in the community wants to share their perspective or a story, happy to do that. While we're waiting for that, I guess I'll turn it back over. And so, Ron, Jean-Luc, Peter, anything else on sales before we potentially talk about services that VARs should be offering and what's been well received? Anything else from a sales standpoint that you're seeing from your partners?
Sure. So it's Ron here. I can just add to the virtual approach. I think everybody shifted to a virtual approach. To Paul's comment earlier, we actually encourage webcam with our teams. We find that when you're doing it face to face, even in a virtual environment, you get more engagement from your prospective client. It's harder for them to be distracted and to start multitasking. And I think there's just a psychological aspect to seeing somebody, which helps. So we encourage that. The other thing I'll say is, when you're shifting to a virtual sales environment, don't think about just the selling aspect of it. Think about all aspects of it. So think about the quotation, think about the actual contracting or the agreement phase. Think about the implementation and rollout. I know you physically have to be there at some point to do the install, but as much as possible, think about re-engineering your process so that there's as little touch as possible with your end client. So I would say that.
Any specifics on re-engineering the process? Anything that you've seen that's effective to reduce those number of touches? Yeah,
it's probably pretty obvious, but we're seeing a lot of partners do virtual demos, so what we've done is we're using Google for everything. So the whole Google suite of products, Google Meet, Google Hangouts, so we can communicate with, internally with sales folks. We are on Salesforce for quotations. We use a service called DocuSign for the agreement phase. So Salesforce will create the quotations for the customers. Once they agree to it, they accept it. They can click, and virtually accept the agreement or the quote via DocuSign, and then everything's automated to go through our setup process from there. And certainly from a demo perspective, we have partners configuring menus, let's say, virtually and showing those and approving them virtually before actually doing the installation.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Ron.
I know we also started to do some online training instead of being face-to-face. Adjusting to it was really challenging. We're used to show people. So here's a receipt. Look at it, right? We don't see it. So that being said, like adjusting to training virtually was a little trickier, but we started to adapt to that part also.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Paul. In the time that we have left, we do want to dive into the services question. So I'll throw it out to, again, the entire community and then also to our featured panelists, featured guests. What service should VARs be offering their merchants? What have you either seen firsthand as a reseller or what have you heard through your partners? What's been well received? What's on the horizon from a services standpoint for the remainder of 2020 and 2021? Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Oh,
sure.
Sorry, I was muted again.
There were crickets out there.
I think what we've seen over the last 3 months is what we're going to continue seeing. We talked a bit about shields. We talked about curbside pickup, e-commerce, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a grocery store. I think those trends are going to become even more ready and aggressive. I think we all rushed into it right now, and we've seen all sorts of other sides to the story, meaning, instead of taking 2-3 weeks to go live, it took 5-6. Those types of things. I think some of those companies and services will get a little better at being able to take that rush and stabilize their solutions, because just like us, they ended up being bombarded for all things. But I think what we've seen in the last 3 months in terms of products and services and the way we're addressing, again, sales approach, training approach, virtual as much as possible for the safety of our staff. So all these things I think are here to stay for, and that will shift. Some of these things will shift, I'll say almost permanently. Some of these things might have waves in it. But I think what we've seen over the last 3 months in those new services or pushed services and offerings will stay pretty much the same. Like there's few add-ons to go up over time, but we see some restaurant softwares now that added the temperature monitoring for their staff, part of their solution. So we see these things starting to, but they're just an extension of what we're seeing everywhere else. So my point is what we've seen in the last 3 months that we kind of rushed in and things that kind of hit us behind the head in the process. We've adapted as much as possible to a point where, these things will improve, but I think we're at the point where we've got somewhat of a direction where, restaurants, retail is going and what their current needs are for the next 2 years.
Got it. Thank you, Paul.
Sorry, this is Tim. Is that okay, Jim?
100%. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So I agree. Adaptation or transformation this is going to stick around for a while, and it could be a prelude for, COVID-24 that may come out. But at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff that is out there, the sneeze guards and elevated temperature tracking for customers as well as staff, I think are still all going to be there. I think some of the areas that we're working on, and everybody's familiar with these, and a lot of them came from the RSPA shows that we went to, but talking about labor saving things, whether it's temperature checking for their coolers and that, or delivery apps where you can provide those kind of services, whether you get a finder's fee for it or you get a portion of the transactions. Certainly the digital signage, if you take a look at all the stores now, I shouldn't say that, that's a standard, that's a generalization, but a lot of the stores have these 8x10, 8x11 pieces of paper that say, please line up here, or this, that, the other thing. I think there's a real opportunity to catapult the digital signage, not only to communicate, physical distancing or, stay safe and so on and so forth, but also communicating, what would be helpful to a guest or a merchant's guest in the marketplace. So there's a lot of things that can be out there that we're looking at anyway.
Got it. And we've only got about 2 minutes left. And if I could have Jean-Luc just talk for a minute, and then Peter, wrap us up. And talking about what Paul and Tim are really talking about is that value-added resellers need to be a total solution provider. They can't say, I'm only going to choose to limit to this. I have to provide all the technology. If it's taking temperatures, if it's online ordering, if it's digital signage, if it's integrating with delivery, they've got to be that technology one throat to choke. So again, Jean-Luc, if you can go for a minute sharing that perspective, if you're seeing it the same way, and then Peter.
Well, so from our end, I mean, we get demands for the hardware, and the demands that we get, the biggest demand that we usually have to respond to is that we have to make it easy for them to integrate the printers into their workspace. And then with this pandemic, we've also found that they're having to do double duty on certain hardware, on the printers. And so they're having to learn how to, or how they can make the printers more polyvalent. It's a word in French. It means that the printer can do more than one thing. Like instead of having just a printer for the receipt, they also use the printer to attach it to the bag, because that's the customer's going to have to carry away the food product. And so we're getting a lot of demands to make the printers flexible, in other words. And so I think that's where the VAR has to be just as flexible. He has to be able to, here's a word that's used way too much, pivot as quickly as their customers have had to pivot in the last couple of months.
Great, thank you, Jean-Luc. And I know Peter ScanSource believes in the total solution provider. You only have to spend a couple minutes with your chief technology officer, your evangelist, Greg Dixon, to know that's really what ScanSource is a lot about. So I guess, can you share your perspective and bring us home on today's roundtable?
Yeah, and just to talk a bit about on the services and also echo some of the stuff Tim had just mentioned about signage and in store. So that's actually one of the areas we saw big increases with color label printers just across the board. So people can actually produce signage of where to stand. They can put the signage on the doors. Also, it helps highlight in store a lot better to help with their revenues and catch people's attention, right? But also, as I mean, services we should be providing as a community like us is the information to companies that are opening up again and helping them educate. Some of these smaller companies, right, they don't understand how to meet the new requirements, and as trusted advisors, they come to us. And in turn, as being a distributor, right, we try to provide that information to the resellers that we deal with. So I mean, I think that's a big thing as a service, and very valuable to the customers as they open up if we are able to offer the same kind of information that RSPA does for this community.
Great, wonderful. Peter, thank you very much. Thanks to our featured guests. Again, Ron Fleming of Global Payments, Paul LeDuc of Globe, Jean-Luc Major from Star Micronics, Tim Shane at King Court, Peter Allen at ScanSource. We encourage all our members to connect with them and get to know them better. And thanks again to our Canadian community sponsors, Blue Star, Payment Tree, Star, Global Payments, Touch Dynamics, ScanSource, and PartnerTech. And thanks especially to you for joining in today's roundtable and listening and participating. The RSPA, our goal is to accelerate the success of our members, our VARs, our ISVs, our vendors, our distributors. And if you'd like to be part of this community, again, what you saw today is only a snapshot of it, just a snippet of what we do year round. Please visit our website at gorspa.org or reach out to us at membership@gorspa.org. Thanks again, everybody, for listening and watching, and best of luck in growing your business the rest of 2020 and beyond. Thanks for participating in today's RSPA Canadian Community Roundtable. Stay well, everybody.